What's going on today, guys? Today we're gonna kind of start with just breaking down, one of the flies that really helped me kind of get into streamer fishing, but also just helped me understand a lot of fish activity. And so, yeah, we're gonna tie the sex dungeon today. You can tie them in a variety of colors, shapes, but one of my favorites colors to fish is the yellow sex dungeon. So yeah, we're gonna break that one down today. All right. And yeah, so before I usually tie any flies, I kind of just like to go through my materials and quote unquote come up with a layout. I have found the success rate is maybe better when it comes to keeping the fly looking the same. Can be easy when you have all your materials out and you kind of a la carte kind of wing it. And sometimes winging it works out great. Other times you end up with a bug or a fly that you're kind of like, what happened? And so yeah, so we're just gonna kind of break that down. And for the hooks, guys, we're just gonna start off with the Ahrex TP610 size 2 for the rear, 140 GSP for the thread. And yeah, we're gonna tie that all the way down to the barb right there. For the Marabou, or for the tail, we're gonna use some Marabou. MFC, mini barred Marabou, 3 to 5 inch. Yellow barred brown. I really like this stuff. It's super affordable, super easy to tie with, and it gives you this barred kind of look. And if you've ever looked at a sculpin, in the river, they kind of have these barred lines to them, and that kind of gives them, just kind of gives you a little bit more standoutishness if you think there's a lot of yellow bugs, you get a lot of yellow flies kind of swimming through the water, and sometimes you got to separate yourself a little bit with something barred, kind of give the fish a little something different to look at in your fishery. And right there earlier, you guys saw me pulling out a ton of Marabou. I end up saving all the excess pieces, and I don't know, maybe it's trying to be resourceful, maybe it's a big waste of time, but every once in a while I find I can go back and use those excess pieces. When it comes to getting this tail, I really like to get about the length of the hook. Take your time and yeah, and just kind of get this all dialed in. The tail's debatably the most important part of the fly. Could argue that's also the hook, since you need the hook to catch the fish. Put that guy in there, nice. And do some flash. Not always necessary. I tie some without it. I tie some with it. I kind of allude to, like, if it's a little bit brighter out, I'm gonna run a fly. Not always, but sometimes with more flash in it, and then other times it's a little bit more overcast out. I might just run just a little less flash, but nothing's absolute. It's kind of like all this this whole dealio. You gotta kind of get out there and just go fishing, you know. That's kind of what I learned with the streamer game is you can talk about it all you want, but you really got to get out there and just fish. Oh, shit. I just dropped that wire. Where'd it go? All right, we're just gonna move on from that part. Yep. I just used my scissors to cut this wire. Don't use your scissors, but you know, practice as I say, not as I do. Isn't that what the old saying is? So, yeah, we're just gonna wrap in a little bit of wire. It's gonna just kind of help hold everything down. Yeah. Don't worry about that too much for now. We'll come back to that. And then for the dubbing, we're gonna use Hareline Ice Dub, golden brown. Because the pattern's really yellow and black, I mean, you could go black with kind of that tool. And we'll set that there for now. And we're gonna use a dubbing spinner on this one. It should just kind of help it, you know, just lay down a little bit flatter. And it's really a preference thing, you know. For a long time, I just put my dubbing on like you would a dry fly. And I kind of learned that way for about a year. And I don't know if this made things better or worse. I find this way, to be honest, is just faster. And what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting a taper. I have a taper in that, so and I'll just let it rip. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, what they always say, they take out money, time, or energy maybe. And you know, when I was just starting out, I didn't want to spend a lot of money, so I allocated a little bit more time to tying each bug and spending the time kind of getting the dubbing done by hand. And I mean, that's a good way to start, y'all, don't get me wrong. But kind of as I progressed and started getting into the guiding, I just found, you know, we lose, I don't know, sometimes you lose a couple dungeons a day to the trees, and you still got to go home and, you know, hang out with the wife and sneak over to the Vice after dinner, tie a couple bugs before you gotta hook the boat up at 5 a.m. and trailer back to East Tennessee. Do it all again, lose a couple more flies, and kind of the price it is to pay, you know, to streamer fish and guide doing it. You're gonna lose some bugs, you know, so not mad about it. And because, you know, when you hook into one of those monsters, or honestly just any fish when you're streamer fishing, when you get one to commit at the oar, just eat that in front of you, it's something else. I mean, there's only a handful of, you know, ways you can feed a fish, to me, that are as visual or as enjoyable as that. So one little pro tip: sometimes you're just not gonna put enough dubbing in, or, you know, I find sometimes the dubbing, when you try and do a big amount, you're just working with too much material at once. And I'd rather work with a little less and come up a little short and have to kind of redub, as they say. Instead of working with too much material, maybe. And that just turns into its own kind of disaster, I would say. And then I'm just going to clean it up. You can do as you want whatever your philosophy is. You know, some people, they leave the dubbing kind of longer. You know, that's moving. Some people want to argue it's moving more water, etc., etc. For me, I honestly just trim it down. Makes it a little easier to tie when you're putting in your Marabou and your other elements later. I don't know, you just looks cleaner. Whether or not that equates to more fish eating your fly, probably not. But you know, at least when you're at the bar, you got skunked. Your buddy can say it was a good looking fly. You know, can't believe a trout didn't eat it. So for our hackle, you can use any hackle you want. I'm using the MFC Barbed Saddle Hackle, yellow black. It works kind of in a system, so you know, if you look at your Marabou and your hackle next to each other, it's the same color. And you know, again, doesn't matter to the fish, probably not. Does it look a little bit cleaner in the box a little bit? Sometimes I find I grab the fly that gives me the most confidence, and sometimes that is looks and aesthetic. So let's tie that in right behind the end of the hook there. And there's really nothing more annoying than catching a fish on a fly and just the hackle kind of busts out. So I kind of just spend a little extra time really tie that thing in. Really give it that special, you know, take the extra 2 seconds, make your fly last you a little longer. You know, takes longer to retie that fly later. And now we're going to wrap the wire in kind of opposite direction. And you know, this one's another one of take your time, get some good wire wraps on there. Didn't do that one very good, so we're gonna start over. And you know, one of the things I learned actually from a Galloup video when he was talking about deer hair, and he said the problem with beginners is they are too embarrassed to go back. Like, he's like what the fuck? Like, if you just spend all this time tying this fly and you mess up your deer hair, and you just keep going, and then you whip finish, put it in your box, you get to the river, the shit falls out, I guess, on the river. You know, it's like on your, I don't know, it's gotta be kind of weird. It's like on your buddy's boat. Anybody just grab the store-bought Dungeon and go on with your day, you know? Whatever's clever. So, you know, if you see something that's not working out, don't do that, by the way. If you see something that's like, you know, it's not working, or you see like the material's clearly not in the right spot, just take the extra second, go back, you know, no shame in starting over real quick. Yeah, just making sure you got it right, you know. It's not a race with these flies, you know. We didn't get in this to do it any better or faster, you know. We just want to really, it's, you know, as Russ Madden says, this is war production, and having that ability to differentiate your box from every other guide on the river or other angler on the river, give those fish just something a little different, you know. So I'm going to take some of that excess Marabou and tie it in right behind the eye. nice and tight. And I'm not gonna do it because I'm not as heavy on the flash as some of you guys are, but I'm just gonna not add any more flash. You're welcome to add flash if you want to. Again, I like to keep my fly just a little bit, my bug a little bit more subtle in the water column. I'm not a huge flash guy. I'll do it on the tails. That's kind of, sometimes if I'm trying to make one that's a little bit poppier, I will. But for this one, for the yellow, it's already pretty gaudy in the water column, so we're just not going to. Lip finish. You can add glue. Sometimes I use the UV resin from Loon, although any of them are fine if that's your deal. Try not to look at these things, it's not good for your eyes, as you imagine. So cool, that's our first half. We're gonna go ahead and kind of start working on the front half. Yeah, one of the multiple ways to connect your fly, y'all. As you know, we can get into that debate. There's mono, there's saffron wire. Honestly, I've just been using this Senyo's Intruder Wire. Typically use mono, but we're just kind of out right now. But works fine. I've tied plenty of bugs with it, plenty of dungeons, plenty of peanut envies, swim bug. I don't know. Insert your articulated streamer and do it. Probably gonna go about 9 inches long, and we'll wrap it through. And we're gonna use Hareline 3D bead gold. For the spacing, and then we're just gonna use one bead for this bug. And this is really like if you think about the full-size dungeon, we're really tying kind of a size down for the local rivers here in North Carolina and Western North Carolina, East Tennessee. I found this size from guiding with clients and just also fishing on my home waters myself this past fall or early winter, that this size, whatever the bug, like this hook size range was, I don't know, it was the best for me and for what I was doing. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. You can go bigger and you can go even smaller, but yeah, I found this one was good to track with the eyes. I think it fished really good. Most of the time in the trout ate it. They ate it in the jaw, I would say. So, you know, that was helpful in terms of landing fish when you get them right there in the side of the jaw. I mean, that's a good spot to hook a trout. For the front, we are using the TP 610 from Ahrex, size number 2. So, yep, got the 4 in the rear and the 2 in the front. And you can go down to a 6 in the rear as well, something to consider. I like the 6 a little bit more if you're going to get into the, how would you put it? And it's not even an Ahrex. I go down to a Gamakatsu B10S, size 6, when I'm tying Drunken Disorderlies, Ellis Ward Swim Bug, My Little Biscuit, any of those ones I like to tie. So, all right, let's start on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and attach this, and this is a little different than how some people attach theirs, but again, I find this way works for me. So and you're watching the video, so who cares? Get this thing nice and tied up there. Gonna go ahead and we're gonna go through the eye of the hook with the wire. I'm just gonna go ahead and tie that all together. They say this is the strongest way to tie your articulation. The other way you can go is you can put the dumbbell eyes on first. You can go around it and go through the eye, or you can go to the dumbbells and then you can trim it and glue it. I've just found this method for me works the best in terms of durability for the fly and just kind of making the process. I try and make my fly tying process fairly like similar or repetitive, maybe that's the right word. Repeatable, that's what we're looking for. And so with the repeatableness, you can, yeah, I guess just you can replicate your fly over again. And when it's replicatable, you know, let's say you go out there and you move something, you can come back the next day, maybe make a small variation difference in color, profile, and, you know, maybe land that fish, hopefully land that fish. It's not always absolutes in streamer fishing. And you can do your figure eights here. Look at that, nice and tight. And then I like to go ahead and kind of get those dumbbells straight. Make sure you're gluing them down, and then I use a little super glue. Use what you got, folks. Just a little bit. And I just kind of try and glue down the dumbbells, the wire, and everything. Now, go light on the glue and take your time when you glue. I've definitely destroyed a lot of flies, you know. You get glue on the Marabou, you rush and put the Marabou on the tail, and that goes to the back hook. And all of a sudden you just spent, you don't notice it at first, sometimes you do, but as soon as you finish the bug and you kind of like, obviously you kind of pull your head up, kind of spin it around, you kind of start to realize, you're like, what have we done? It's all fucked up. Excuse my language. So, shout outs to my buddy Nate, who I met at the slide-in this past season. To be honest, I didn't really believe in yellow flies. But, you know, he works over for the Galloup, and you know, it was kind of the slick day of fishing out there on the Madison, and not a lot's moving. You know, we fished the white and the black, and then we put on the yellow, and I was like, what's the theory to yellow? And, you know, he kind of gave me the spiel. I guess Kelly, you know, I guess when he was just starting his shop over in Michigan, he would also, was a taxidermist, I think is the story. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nate. And he would always find the one common fish when he would look inside these fish that he was taxidermying was perch. And, you know, they were finding perch in fish's systems that there wasn't perch in that system. And so it sounded like the conclusion was that fish eat perch, you know, and humans eat perch. I mean, I know a lot of rednecks around here munch on some perch themselves. We're gonna add a little bit of flash here, and you can skip it. It's really your call, guys. But yeah, so we put on the yellow. I think the Boogeyman was the exact pattern we did, and you're going like 3 hours down the Madison not seeing a fish. You start to wonder, should you nymph? I put on the yellow, and I had every bit of big. I'm not gonna name the size because we didn't edit, but a very respectable trout, bigger than 20 inches, smaller than 30 inches, somewhere in that range. I'll, insert your fishing joke quote here, but all of that stuff, kind of insert that. Well, we'll save those for later. And yeah, all of a sudden, you go 5 feet down the river and move 3 fish, land net 1, and you're like, oh, okay, something to yellow today. And the joke they had at the slide-in was, if it's yellow, it's absolutely yellow, and if it's not yellow, it's definitely not yellow. And so, that's one of those flies you can put on in about 5 minutes. If you're not getting any feedback, you probably move on. But certain days, the yellow has a good one, a good trigger point, and it's also got, I've noticed, transitioning the yellow fly to the East Coast, preferably Tuckasegee, South Holston, Watauga River, Southeast region. I've kind of noticed that the yellow, there'll be days where they're just not committing to the olive, and sometimes it's our water clarity when they turn the dam on and there's some leaves in the system, etc. And yeah, it just has this look kind of profile to it in the water, and it's put a lot of fish in the boat for me. It's put a lot of fish in the boat for some of the clients I've worked with this year. I've seen one of my clients, shout out to Ben D. Wilson, came out fishing with me a couple weeks back on one of the coldest days. Kind of just period, guys. It was snowing out there. And, we got out there and we threw the streamer for a few minutes. And we kind of buckled in, and I'm not going to lie, we did some nymphing. And, I don't know, we nymphed up a couple. And then I said, Ben, do you want to, I know you've gone out with me before, and we've caught numbers on other trips. What do you say? You want to go after some big fish? You want to strip some flies? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And so we started with olive, peanut envy. It's not a bad bug to start with. Moved a couple. We moved over to Gray Swim Coach, another good bug by Charlie Craven. And then we put on the yellow. It was about that point where I forgot about yellow for a second there. And then I looked in the box, and there's one yellow one specifically that sometimes the flies, in my opinion, just have good luck to them. And so anyways, we put that one on, and it wasn't every bit of I kid you not, the 4th freaking cast. And one fish missed it, we trout set. Next cast, fish just suicided it. Clawed the thing. Not a big fish, probably 15 inches, but the eat was still freaking cool, I'll say that. Just got my whip finisher right there. And then, so yeah, just put some dubbing on. It's a little bit heavier, so I'm going to trim it back just a hair. We're going to add some more Hackle. One of the things I forgot to kind of mention, I kind of leave a little bit of these kind of not so hackly fibers at the top. I don't know if that's the right word, but I kind of like the profile it gives. I kind of also like the way it's kind of moving just a little bit more water or in the river. Kind of gives it some good movement in my opinion. Again, it's really a preference thing, but that's just something I picked up from some other tyers this past season tying. And again, guys, just take your time. Make sure you really get this thing tight down. Get that out of my way. Oh boy. There we go. Sometimes you just get that wire just a little bit off, you know. Kind of get that. Kind of going like so. One thing, guys, I like to do is just kind of when I'm tying any bag is just always spin it around, kind of double check what you're doing, and then I also kind of like to build the fly kind of in the position it's going to be swimming, and obviously these fibers are going to be shrunk back, but it's good just to kind of give you some profile references. You know, take your time, look at your bug, and you know, make sure everything's proportionate to your size. And if something doesn't feel right, no shame in, you know, going back a step. I mean, I do that all the time. Gotta look at it, you know, show the wife, question it all, do it again. Maybe is that the cycle of insanity? What they say insanity is doing the same thing multiple times and expecting different results. Maybe I am crazy. Cool. So we got that in. And one thing I forgot to mention is we kind of want to offset our Dumbell Eyes back from the eye of the hook. 1/4 inch, 3/16 of an inch. A little bit of ways back, and maybe not needing to know the the exact millimeter length back, but knowing the reason of why you need to do something, I find is better from a design aspects. And so the more you move the eyes back, the more space you're going to have to tie in your deer hair. However, the more you move it back, the less dive rise when you're pulling you're going to get. Because you're putting that weight further back in your fly, so it's going to kind of ride like that. So there's kind of a happy medium. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. It really just, boils down to how you like to fish your bug, and what also just gives you confidence when you're tying. A lot of what we're doing is, we're tying something and looking for a player on the water. So if you have confidence in your fly, you're going to fish it convicted, maybe is the right word. Like you're going to be convicted to fish that fly the way you oughta. I like to do just one stack, not spun, for the back. Kind of get that hair kind of on there. And one thing I learned kind of early on in my tying, I went to a class taught by another guy, Landon Lipke. Shouts out to him. He taught me a lot when it came to the articulated game and really the deer hair game. He always talks about less is more, and I just kind of was like, well, there's no way you can get those really big bushy heads. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's easier to just use less material multiple times and kind of stack it the way you like than it is to kind of go the opposite route and try and spin a huge amount of hair. So I always say it's about a pencil, and then you can use a hair stacker. This fly is so small, I haven't really had issues getting my hair to spin too much. I just kind of pick all the cotton out of it, and that's going to help your spin a lot. And kind of get it. I know you shouldn't clip these with these because you're going to dull them, but whatever. You just got to do what you got to do sometimes. Get that in there nice and tight. One of the things I always used to mess up getting started was the finish. So make sure you get this nice down on the eyes of your fly, not over the hair. That can be annoying. And then use your whip finisher. You can whip finish by hand too. Sometimes it's a little easier to do that when you got this much deer hair kind of in your ether. Let's see. That did not come out very good. I'll tighten that up, and then we're just going to trim off this excess. Alright, so now we've kind of gone ahead and you've got your bug. We're all done with our tying materials. Yeah, so what I like to do Now we're gonna get into the head trimming, and this is where the art really gets, in my opinion, becomes important. Like this is where, like, you know, you can listen to a video from Tommy Lynch, video from the Galloup, Ellis, Larry Dahlberg, Whitlock, maybe. I don't know. You could read his books, and kind of all the same, but kind of different approaches to everything. For me, I like to kind of go ahead and clip the underbody, kind of trim those excesses you're not real stoked on. That one's annoying me. Come on, you little bugger. And then I go into my eyes. All right, so kind of cut the eyes out. Now I'm just gonna take a straight razor blade, and I actually learned this from Ellis, who was talking about it from a Tommy Lynch podcast. And the concept was that there's never supposed to be, when it comes to getting a good shape to your head, Tommy was talking about that there should never be a wedge between the eye of the hook and the head, like where the deer hair starts. It should be like one edge, not a block. So I kind of pull it back, and I kind of just get right in there. And yeah, take your time. You don't want to go too deep and cut, you know, the top of the head, but I kind of like to get it like that. And from there, you can ditch this guy. Put that out of the way so I don't cut myself. And you can kind of start to shape your, and I do this with scissors again. A lot of people use a rounded knife, and it's really just your style, guys, and like what you, kind of how you learned. I didn't really have a lot of blades at my disposal when I got into tying. I didn't have one of those fancy blades that bent, so I kind of just learned how to do it by kind of going like full barbershop mode on these things. And I don't know, I find you can get different actions. You can leave it a little bit flatter, and you're gonna get more of like that big kick kind of wedge. You can go rounder, and you kind of get this like wobble. And I mean, you can play with the leaders, and that's going to affect a little bit of this, but yeah. And I kind of just like to give it some profile. But yeah, that's the Yellow Dungeon by me, Jake Smith. Thanks for tuning in.